welcome everyone to our April Caregiver Connection. We are going to hear from Angela Dowlen on practical strategies to get ready for kindergarten with a focus on autism. Angela, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you everybody for making time on a Friday afternoon to hear about some tips to get ready for kindergarten. I'm Angela Dowlen, and I am an autism consultant through Northwest Regional. And what that means is any child that has an autism eligibility in early childhood or early intervention, I am available to those IFSP teams to consult when they need, provide resources, provide coaching, modeling to support working with kids who are eligible under autism. And so I think the strategies that we're going to go over in this presentation are also helpful to just any learner moving into kindergarten, because strategies that work for kids with autism also work really well for a lot of other kids also. So if you're here and you don't have a child that's eligible under autism, I think you can still get some good tips. So when thinking about getting ready for kindergarten, I get the question a lot of, do you think my child's ready for kindergarten? Or I don't know if they're ready. Do you think they're ready? And I think many of you might be wondering yourselves, is my kid ready for kindergarten? And I like to think of this in two ways, is we can think about the child being ready for kindergarten. Do they have the skills? Are they mature enough? Can they communicate? And we can also think about, sorry, my computer did something funny. It's asking me to re-sign in, so my notes are gone, but I will try to do that and multitask here. But I think of it in two different ways, because then we can also think about, is our team at school ready for our child? Do they have enough information about our child to be ready for them to be learning? We know that when our child turns 5 by September 1st, they are eligible to be enrolled in kindergarten. And so are they ready? The state says yes, at 5 years old, they're ready. But because they have an eligibility under autism spectrum disorder, they have a unique learning style. So we need to make sure that the school is ready to work with our child and share the information they're going to need in order to be ready for them. And so that's how I like to think of it. It's not just, is my child ready for kindergarten? It's, are we as a team ready for kindergarten? And so we're going to go over some strategies to be ready, and that starts with connection, communication, and teamwork. We want to connect our students and our families with the school team, with friends, with peers, because it really takes a team to be ready for kindergarten. And then we want to think about autism awareness and understanding. We want to think about, are the staff and people who are going to be working with and interacting with my child aware of what autism is, and do they understand what that means for the child? How does that child communicate differently? How do they think differently? How do they experience the world in a different way? And so we want to create some understanding around autism in order for everybody to be ready for kindergarten. And then we're going to go over some helpful tips just to kind of navigate that first day of school. I think it can be really overwhelming to think about getting ready for kindergarten and getting ready for the school year. So if we can kind of think about, how do we get our child ready for that first day? How do we get ourselves ready for that first day of school? And so we really want our kids to feel comfortable and confident on that first day. And we want you as parents to feel as comfortable and confident as you can. So are we ever going to be really ready to start kindergarten? My answer is probably no. I remember going through it myself and thinking, there's no way I'm ready for my kid to go off to kindergarten. No matter how much we prepare, I don't know that we're ever really going to feel ready. So I want you to know there's a school team and people who are going to support you along the way and your child. And it's about connecting and communicating and working as a team. So we can go on to the next slide. So thinking about connection and communication and really thinking about it as how do we get ready as a team? So the first part that you have as parents in this process is really registering your child for kindergarten. If you haven't done that already, I highly recommend doing that as soon as possible so that school gets the information about your child in a timely manner. Waiting until the last minute to register them means that that school doesn't have access to information they're going to need about your child, especially if they're receiving early childhood services. Once you register your child with for school, once you register your child for school and your child is on an IFSP or a family service plan, meaning they're eligible for special education, that district and that school team, which is Beaverton, is going to contact you to develop your IEP. And that's where you're going to meet with the school team and whoever else you want to invite to that meeting. It's really important that you can invite anybody you would like to that IEP meeting. Beaverton is probably going to invite the team members from their district, but if you want an early childhood provider or somebody on your IFSP team to come, please share that information out with them, because for you as a parent, it's really important for you to have the people there that are most familiar with your child and who know what's going to support them the best. So you can invite your preschool teacher, you could invite a grandparent, you can invite another provider. If your child's in ABA therapy, you could invite their behavior technician. It's really up to you who's important to be at that meeting. And then as the summer goes by, I think it's important to try to meet with your child's teacher before the first day of school. If there's some way you can connect with that teacher, it's nice to, maybe they have their schedule or routine already developed and you can get that from them and kind of review that with your student. It's nice, maybe they have pictures of their staff or school team members that might be working with that child. It's nice to have that to preview information. So it's sort of nice just to make that connection with the teacher before the first day of school, so it's not a surprise to you or to your child who they're going to be on that first day. You can move on to the next slide. So the second part of this is really understanding autism and making sure people on your team have a good understanding of how autistic brains are sometimes wired a little bit differently, and they're going to be thinking about the world differently, and they're going to experience the world differently. So the learning plan and the strategies we use to educate them at school are going to look a little bit different, and how we respond to students or kids with autism is going to look a little bit different. So we're just going to watch a quick little video to gain some understanding of what it is possibly like to have a brain and what it's like to have autism and how their brain might work a little differently or how they might interpret the world differently.
We are all different. And that's wonderful. Some differences are easy to see. Height, hairstyle, gender, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be seen. Our favorite foods, fears, or special skills. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see a duck, but some of you might have seen a rabbit. Whichever you saw, you are correct. This is just a trick drawing to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn. That's why we are all good at different things. How you feel, which is why we all feel different emotions. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way it affects the senses and how we perceive and read situations and interactions. This is known as autism. Many people have autism, so it's likely you already know someone who is autistic. And for this reason, it's useful to know a little bit about autism. The special wiring inside an autistic brain can sometimes make the person good at tasks we may find difficult, such as mathematics, drawing, or music. It can also do the opposite, and activities we find too easy are incredibly difficult to them, such as making friends. The senses constantly send information to your brain about your surroundings and other people. However, when a person's brain and its senses don't communicate well, the brain can become overwhelmed and confused, affecting how they see the world. Picture yourself walking down the street. This is how an autistic brain may experience the same world. Scary, isn't it? Sadly, in many cases, the person can't say out loud how they feel. So even though there's chaos going on in their heads, they seem okay on the outside, unable to ask for help. We will develop behaviors to help us feel calm in uncomfortable situations. We may look away, hug ourselves, chew our fingernails, fidget, bite our lips, and so on. Equally, autistic people develop behaviors that help them cope with these intense moments. These actions may seem unusual, but they're just their way to feel calm. When they happen, it means they are having a hard time. The kind thing to do is not to give them an even harder time by getting cross, ignoring them, or mocking them. People with autism need friends who are willing to take the time to know them. With good communication and plenty of patience, everyone would be better off. People with autism are not ill or broken. They simply have a unique view of the world. And with a little support from their friends, they might just be able to share that view with us. Autism can make amazing things happen.
All right, you can go on to the next slide. I love that video, and I know we're going to be going over a lot of things and going over them really quickly today. So I just want you to know at the end of this, we will send you a PDF of all this, of this entire slide deck, which is going to have all the resources embedded in it that I might go over. And so you're going to have lots of resources to share with staff and teachers and caregivers on your student. And I really am trying in this presentation and thinking about getting ready for kindergarten is thinking about building on those characteristics in autism that are really strengths for the student, and really thinking about what motivates and interests our student and what keeps them focused in learning. Because, you know, like in the video, when kids with autism enter a new environment, it can be really scary because their sensory system is processing it differently. So familiarity and predictability is really important in helping them get to know the school and helping the school get to know them, and thinking about communication, and that's an impact with a lot of our kids who are autistic, and their ability to express themselves can be really difficult, especially using words that most people use as the main means of communication. So it's really important for us as early childhood providers and as parents to communicate what the strengths are of our kids and the interests. And when thinking about autism, some of the strengths I think of is they have an amazing attention to detail and accuracy. And sometimes, like, once they learn routines, they get them really quickly. They have the ability to have really deep focus and concentration when they're interested in something or they're passionate about it. Many of our kids have an excellent memory and they have excellent recall of information. So these are all just these wonderful skills that if they feel comfortable enough and safe enough and connected in their environment, they're going to be able to not only show the skills they have, but learn new ones, right? And that's the reason we go to school, is to learn these new skills. But we want to make sure that they feel comfortable and safe enough to learn. So we need to provide them with the routines, the predictability, becoming familiar with the staff and adults and peers they're going to be interacting with. Some more strengths is their expertise and strong knowledge. I'm not sure if any of you have kids who are just experts in certain areas, but I love when kids are passionate and just research everything about a topic. The creativity, unique thought processes, they're determined and they persevere and they keep trying. And they can be very accepting of differences. And then I think a great quality with a lot of our kids who are autistic is their honesty and their loyalty and how committed they are to friendships and to their interests. So there's so many strengths to build on, and it's so important to communicate those strengths to your teachers and to the staff working with the kids, because they're not always apparent right away. And especially if the child is anxious or nervous in an environment, those strengths, we might not be able to see them as well. There's a couple links here that I think are great websites to go to. If you want to click on just the strengths and challenges in autism, that's a great website to check out. And it just goes through thinking about the characteristics in more of a self-affirming way and in a way that's strength-based for the child. So I'm not going to go through it all, but I encourage you to explore this site. And it also talks about some of the challenges. And there's some nice wording in here to help you communicate with your teachers at school that maybe you hadn't thought of before. Thinking about like the powerful memory system, or their ability to problem solve and build is amazing. And the more teachers know about their strengths, the more they can build their curriculum and instructional strategies around those strengths. So you can click out of that. Thank you. So I'm not sure if everybody has access to the chat, but I would love if you could just take about 30 seconds, think about it, and just put a unique strength of your child in the chat that you can think of, something that they just have an amazing ability to do, or something you've noticed. It's sometimes fun to start this thinking process of what are those things that my child does that I see as a unique strength. And it's okay if you don't want to share also. So someone said good memory. Yeah, a lot of our kids have an excellent memory, especially for facts and details. And it's so fun hearing those strengths. My son has an amazing memory. He can do advanced math. He loves numbers. So there's his passion. So that's something that really should be shared with his teacher, right? Is, you know, tune into math with him, memorizing songs and jingles. Music is a fantastic access tool to learning. And so many of our kids love that pattern of the music and the consistency, and really tune in better when music is involved in their learning. So that's something to share with the teacher. Because the more tools you give the teacher to connect with your child, the more comfortable your child's going to feel in that classroom. So thank you for sharing. Great imagination, loves to make up characters, friends out of random objects around the house. What a fun thing to share with a teacher, because then they could maybe create some play opportunities or roles that your child could direct and make up the characters for. Like tuning into that strength of your child is something I would do as a teacher. So then how do we share this information with our teams? Most of our kids here are on a service plan, which is talking about what are the goal areas, what are their deficits, where are we going to go with them to help them access their learning. But I kind of like to share the student profile more holistically, like what are their strengths? What is their communication preference? So if you want to move on to the next slide, I'm going to give you some examples of how you can share information about your child that I feel is just a little bit more personal than our special education paperwork. It's great. We know it's there. That gets them the tools and the strategies and the specially designed instruction that they're going to need to access education. But when I'm thinking about introducing my child to a teacher for the first time, I want them to know all the cool things about my kid. I want them to know all of the positive, what do I love doing with my kid? How does my kid communicate? What are they interested in? What motivates them? I see Legos, spatial awareness, and building. If I'm that teacher, I'm going to have Legos in my classroom. I'm going to have activities that involve building and working with my hands because that might be that kid's learning style. Thank you for sharing that. He likes to call my family in my country, and he tries to talk to them in Spanish, so that just perseverance. He's trying to communicate in a way that they communicate. That's cute. So things that you can share about your child before they start school and connecting with your teacher is best ways to communicate with me. Like, what should that teacher be doing in order to communicate with the child? What works best? What do I respond well to? Things that are challenging for me. And I'm talking from the child's perspective right now. How do I know when I'm struggling? How to know when I'm struggling or stressed, and then what's the best way to respond to me in that situation? These are all things that are really important for the teacher to know. So one of the most important things I think is what their communication style is and what their communication preferences are, and sharing that with the teacher. Some of our kids have very little spoken language or words, or they might speak in phrases. Sometimes those phrases can be scripted, and sometimes they don't always mean what they say, or it's hard to interpret what they mean. So if you want to click on the one pager, this is from a parent who put together, I was reviewing what a kindergarten resume was, kind of talking about all the cool strengths of the child. And then she showed me this that she had put together for her child. And I was so impressed with it that I thought I would share it in this meeting. And what I really liked is in the area where it says speech and what does my student mean when he's saying things, she gave some really specific examples that some of the scripts he uses right now, what he's saying, and then what he might mean. So as an example, the speech might appear out of context. He's partly a Gestalt language processor, which means he might speak in scripts or small chunks rather than stringing individual words together. So when he says, "What you want for eat," he means "I'm hungry." He might not understand what "I'm hungry" means yet, but he knows that "what you want for eat" is something that might be said to him when he's hungry. So he's using that to say, "I'm hungry." Some of the other things that he says is when he's unsatisfied with options available or his choices, he might say, or, letting you know that, hey, I don't want those choices. There's something else I want, but I don't know what it is. So then you could keep showing him options. But those are really great, very specific things to share with the teacher that might help them understand your child in the classroom a little bit better. And I'm also going to show you, you can show the sample kindergarten, go back and show the sample kindergarten resume really quick. I know we're almost to the end. This is one that we have a template, and if you want help putting your child's like strengths-based profile together for your teacher, we can help you out with this, because we, just connect with your service coordinator or with me, and we can help you put together the strengths and the learning style of your child and maybe challenges they might have. And you can always reach out after this meeting too with questions or concerns, because we have a couple months before kindergarten and we're available to you. So I'm going to take this last couple minutes and roll through some tips that you can do before kindergarten starts over the summer. What are some of the things that can help your child get familiar with the school and feel more comfortable? I suggest going to the school playground with peers from school if possible, so that they become familiar with the playground, understanding how to use some of the equipment on the playground. A lot of schools have rules where you can't climb up the slide, so you might want to work with them on climbing up the ladder and going down the slide if climbing the slide is something they like to do. If your school offers a back to school night or kindergarten night, definitely attend that and get to know the school, the teacher, let them explore. I'm going to come back to that question. I'm just going to get through our list really quick and I'll come back to the question. I have, One thing you might want to think about with the school night is if your child is sensitive to big crowds and feeling overwhelmed in new situations, you might want to connect with the school and see if you can do an individualized walkthrough or explore the school on your own to not be overwhelmed. Read stories and books about kindergarten. I linked 2 here. It's Miss Bindergarten Gets Ready for Kindergarten. They're YouTube videos you can watch with your child. Create a social story. Social stories are little narratives that help kids become familiar with new routines. We have one here in English that's going to be linked, and I have a back to school social story video in Spanish linked. So those are there for you. And if you need any resources or if you want to develop a social story specific to your child, I can help your team do that if you reach out to your service coordinator. Include your child when picking out school supplies, like help them become comfortable and familiar with their school supplies. Create a special place for your daily school supplies at home to make the transition out the door easier and predictable in the mornings. Having a special place and putting all those school supplies like the lunch box and the backpack and your jacket and your shoes all in one place can really help that transition go easier. There are some school supply tips. Can you go back? I'm going to go over those really quickly. If you click on the English one, some things to consider with autism is that those sensory needs and just feeling comfortable in their environment. So comfortable clothing is really important. Thinking about, we love to buy new clothes for school, but our kids with autism might want some time to wear those clothes before they wear them to school. So new might not be as exciting to them. Have some comfort items in their backpack, maybe things that make your kid feel comfortable and calm, like a stuffed animal, a favorite blanket, might help them settle into the new routine. And you can talk to your school team about listing it as an accommodation on your IEP or on your plan, because that's something that your child needs. It's not just something they want to have with them. They might need that to regulate and make their system feel calm. Go down a little bit more, the backpack, maybe have high interest items on it, make it personal to them. Create opportunities for your kid to wear the backpack, practice that morning routine. You could have some sensory items in the backpack, like squishies or fidgets can be helpful. Many schools are going to supply those sensory items for you, but it's always good to send them that first week or two, especially ones your child is comfortable with. And then just remember, start your back to school routine early. It's recommended that you start your bedtime and wake up routine at least 2 weeks early, so both you and your child can adjust to the new schedule. Using those visual tools for routines can be really helpful. I suggest one for the morning routine, the after school routine, and then maybe your bedtime routine. Having a checklist will create less anxiety and provide your child with a way of visually understanding what those expectations are. So just to follow up, I know transitioning to kindergarten can be really hard, and we didn't cover a whole lot in this 30 minutes. It's a new routine and it's a big change for all of us. And this is kind of like from your child. Just know that your child can do hard things. And from your child's thinking, I believe I can do great in kindergarten, especially with a team of people who are there to support me along the way. Don't worry, we got this from your child. If your child is feeling connected, supported, and heard, they're going to do okay in kindergarten and they're going to be ready for kindergarten. All those skills are going to come. That's what the teachers are there to do. That's why they're going to have an individualized education plan in place to really meet the needs that they have. Our job right now is to help them feel as comfortable as possible and confident as possible starting school, and to make sure that school team has the important information they need to meet their learning style to be successful in kindergarten. And I know that was a whirlwind. I can't believe 30 minutes went by that fast. Just any questions? I want to respect time. It is 3:32, but I'm here and available if you have questions that we can
And it looks like there's two in the chat,
Okay.
Angela, if you wanted one from Laura and one from Eric.
Humming, is this one from Laura Kendall? Is this the one? My son stims quite often, humming, repetitive noises, and hand flapping. Many times doing these things helps him concentrate. Should this be on the know me sheet? Absolutely. It's good to let that teacher and that team know that those are the things he's going to do to regulate his system. Sometimes he might do those things and they might help him focus. And so some things teachers can do is provide a space for him to do those. If the humming is really loud, sometimes just having a space in the classroom for him to go. Hand flapping, he can do that whenever he wants. People cheer really loud at games, but absolutely share with the teacher any of those things that help him regulate his system. And maybe even sharing when you notice him do those most often. So she'll understand or he'll understand the situations where they might see some of those behaviors. And those behaviors are okay, that's helping him regulate his system. And it might even be a warning sign or a signal to that teacher that something feels off and I might be feeling anxious or excited or nervous or scared or extremely happy. Hand flapping can mean a bunch of different things. So the more you communicate with the teacher about those details, the better that is. That's a great question. Was there one more question that I could answer before we get going? And please know to reach out to your service coordinators if you want to, again, set up a time to review that kindergarten profile sheet that we could put together for your school team. I'm happy to support that.
Yes, and Eric wondered if the social stories and the routines and maybe checklists would also help his child who is resisting preschool and already kind of feels like not ready, that the kid is saying, I'm not ready for kindergarten, and gets kind of sad about it.
I think so. I think familiar work. I think one, digging into a little bit deeper, trying to understand why they're resistant and what is going on for that child internally to cause them to say these things about not feeling ready. But I think the more that he can become familiar with the fun things about kindergarten or things that he might be interested in kindergarten. If I was thinking about doing a social story for him, I might think about what his interests are and then think about some of the things in kindergarten that are going to be aligned with those interests. If he likes to play on the playground, maybe taking some pictures of the school playground and saying, every day, as long as it's not raining, you get to go out and play on this playground and you might get to meet new friends. So kind of tune into what motivates him and keeps him interested and how we can relate that to school, and writing a story about that could be something to do. So yeah, I think so.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Resources here. Autism Little Learners is a great resource page for tips on preparing your child for kindergarten. She goes through 5 tips. Some of the ones we went through here, but she provides some more detail on them. We do have our ASD quick tips and tools that should have went out I think it went out in February. And there's a bunch of parent supports on there, including the kindergarten resume template that you guys can use and have access to. I encourage you to go to Fact Oregon and look at the IEP toolkits. Transitioning from an IFSP to an IEP can be a little daunting. And so there's some great information there. There's the back to school checklist that's autism specific that you can review. It might spark ideas for you. There is a link here to a kindergarten social story that you can use. Again, if you want to do something that's a little bit more personalized to your child, feel free to reach out to your service coordinator and I can support that also.
Well, thank you, Angela, for sharing these great resources and tips. And thank you, caregivers, for joining us today. We hope to see you in May. And please reach out to us or your service provider, and we'll continue to support you as you prepare your child for kindergarten.
Thank you.